David Bowie, outsider, man of a million faces. Follow his changes, this chameleon of rock.
That sounds like you hate that kind of.
Yes, I do. I do. I think it's lazy journalism. Firstly, for instance, a chameleon is something that changes its colour to suit its background, which I don't think that's what's intended when they say that. And the changes thing is just such ghastly alliteration anyway.
You've been making music for more than 25 years now.
Yeah.
Is there something like a thread going in that?
Oh, you know something? I think it's as corny as Search for a Spiritual Foundation. I really do think it's as kind of cliche as that.
That's an easy answer.
Yes, I know, and unfortunately I keep coming back to it, you know. I suppose it's that, it's a term that the Gnostics use, which is called the God beyond God. And I think that there's a sense of one's trying to find some merit in the chaos that we perceive as our existence. And for someone like myself who comes from, like most of us, I don't know, in this room, come from the Judeo-Christian upbringing, there's something that palls with the idea of having a God who's a judge and a father and an arbiter of morals and whatever. It just doesn't, it seems too symbolic, it's too easy. And I think that the idea that the early Gnostics had, which is that there is in fact the deep, the depth of the God beyond the God. There's something beyond that which one can't call a singular entity. It's something that just pervades everything. And I still think that that's probably one of the major searches that I've probably made in my life. I'm not sure how close I ever got, but I know that it does occur to most of us, I think, who work in the arts or in writing or expressing oneself. When you're expressing oneself, you're also trying to express one's existence, you know, so it's wrapped up in the same thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really don't know. It's something to do with that. It's something to do with what used to be feelings of alienation, although those feelings have kind of dissipated over the last 10 years for me. I don't feel as though I'm picked on by today. I feel as though I feel comfortable in my society.
When I was not doing much in 1975, he invited me to come along on his world tour station to station in '76. And I had never seen anybody in my life work as hard as that guy did. I mean, he was getting up at 8 in the morning to travel by car, because he didn't fly, by car all day to a gig. In the car would always be a fresh collection of the newest tapes by artists from all over the world, studying the stuff, listening to it. Okay, Tom Waits, he knew about Tom Waits before anybody. Kraftwerk, he knew about Kraftwerk before anybody. So not just, oh, I'm into this kind of music, man, and that's all I like. He gets to the town, does a couple of interviews, catches a half-hour sleep, and he's on stage doing the show. Then after the show, the guy won't stop. He's out checking out whatever band is in town, knocking on his guitarist's door at 4 in the morning, let's write a new song. I was exhausted just watching it.
I don't think I'm as obsessive as I used to be by any means. I think I have such a great personal domestic life now that a lot of my energy is going to that. I think when I felt sort of disenfranchised to a certain extent from life around me, I think I just focused in on work and nothing else. But that was a long time ago, in almost 20 years, you know. I don't have that obsession anymore, quite the same way.
No? Are you happy for that?
It's relative. I'm very happy with the way my life is. I have a very fulfilled life. I think it has to be measured in terms of fulfillment. And as a person, I feel very fulfilled in that way. I do equal enough work and live a very fulfilling life with my chosen partner and family. I find nothing lacking. There's nothing really I want out of life that I haven't somehow been given some kind of access to, which is, I'm very lucky, extremely lucky. I don't think there's an ounce of Americanism in me. I think I'm the most unlikely contender to be in rock and roll. I think I probably would have been far better suited in another time for sort of vaudeville or cabaret or something. I don't feel like a rock and roll animal, even one iota.
No?
No, I'm a pop singer, much more a pop singer than I'm a rock singer. I don't need, I think it's, there are kind of two ways of performing on stage or doing anything, I think, in any of the art forms. One is to be loved, and I think when you want that, when you need an audience's love, I think that you have to, and what you end up doing is trying to match their expectations and trying to sort of say, well, what would they want, you know? And I think that there's this like rather cranky idea that people like me have, is that you know, you want to keep exploring different avenues. And I guess that because I get all my love that I need at home, I don't really feel that I need to please an audience in quite that same way. So I'm prepared for more or less anything I get. But I really insist in doing things that give me the kind of musical, again, I use the same word, fulfillment, that I require as an artist. So it means doing some things that are quite, I guess, bizarre or obscure or kind of off the wall for an artist of my age and standing. For me personally, I think there's been some songs that I really have always adored. I never really given myself a chance to play them, because the shows that I've done up until 1990, especially during the 80s up through the 90s, were generally so stacked with things that probably the audience would wish to hear, that there wasn't much room left for doing some of the songs that I'm now able to do, because I'm juxtaposing the material from outside with things like Teenage Wildlife and Joe the Lion, Andy Warhol. Actually, and Look Back in Anger. Interestingly enough, there are two, I'm adding on for this tour, two songs that were from the Ziggy Stardust album, but ones which I haven't done for something like 25 years, which are 5 Years, which was the opening track, and the closing track, which is Moon Age Daydream, which is really quite exciting, doing them with this band.
What is the thing that he can put extra on your music?
I don't know. It's always a really embarrassing question for me, because I'm not quite sure what it is that Brian does. I mean, he doesn't play very much. I always mix my albums. So I guess it has something to do with the fact when he puts himself into a work situation, he just changes the parameters of what you're doing, more by verbalizing different approaches to what one does. So it's more kind of a philosophic content with Brian than a kind of a didactic, musicianly kind of overall control. He's very good at what-ifing. He'll say, what if you were to do this, or what if you were to do that, and possibly come up with new choices of avenues to take that maybe we wouldn't otherwise have thought of. So he's really important in the very early stages of making an album, because he can set it on a path that will be unusual. And that's where he tends to feel happiest, I think, in the inception of making an album. He's, like me, has a very short attention span. I think once he's done a few days' work, I'm off now, and he'll go off somewhere else. And then the next bit is, I am with Nay, hey. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Outside really came from, Brian and I since the 70s, there's a museum near to where I live in Switzerland called L'Art Brut, which was, I think it was started by Dubuffet, the painter. And in the late 70s, Brian and I would go there a lot and look at the stuff there, because it was, it's quite bizarre, the presentations there and the paintings. It's from that genre of art which is now called outsider art. People who are in solitude or ostracized, maybe self-inflicted or institutionalized. They were very strong influences on Dubuffet, and Dubuffet kind of built this museum as like guilt payback and put a number of these people in. And it was there's a sense of the non-judgmental about the work, the people who painted from some real inner need to throw everything out in such a way that they were indifferent to whether the work was ever seen or not. So it comes from a place that there are very few painters or artists that I'm aware of, that I know and have met, who actually paint, and then after they finish painting, who are indifferent to what people think of it. We all feel as though we should get some comment on our work, but this work gets to a place which is really, really strange and insular and outside. And I guess that was that became our buzzword for the album. That was trying to resuscitate that same sense of being on the periphery of the mainstream rather than being right in the centre. It's a very sad rendition, of course, because it's so tied up with his own life and death. So it takes on all these different shades for me. Because I also remember fairly clearly my state of mind when I was actually writing it, which was, I guess, as near to a mystical state that a 19-year-old can get into. And I remember it was at a time when I was sort of studying Buddhism, for my 15 minutes of Buddhism. So it's interesting that it changed. It really had two mystical states: the time that I wrote it and recorded it, and the time when he wrote it. When he wrote it again, when he recorded it, and the things that led up to his end after that. So I guess it still retains for me a sense of the mystical. Yeah.
And you play that song on stage?
Yeah. Again, we do yet another very different version. It's kind of trance-like still. Well, it always was trance-like, but I think I'd probably push that even further.